Thank you for downloading this episode of Folk on Foot. Before we start, I just wanted to share a brief message. If you like what we do, we really need your support to keep going. You can join our wonderful band of members and you'll get great rewards. These include access to our amazing Folk on Foot on film archive of hundreds of songs shot on location on our travels around the UK and Ireland. To sign up, just go to folkonfoot.com/supportus. You'll also get an ad-free version of all our episodes and an email postcard from me each time we go on a walk. If you just want the ad-free version, it'll cost you £3 a month, and you can get it through your Apple Podcast app or at folkonfoot.com/supportus. Finally, if you don't want to make a regular commitment but do want to show how much you love us, you can simply buy us a coffee. You can also do that at folkonfoot.com/supportus. Every penny we get goes back into making more episodes of Folk on Foot. So thank you and enjoy the walk. We've come back to Devon, and it's a cold and frosty morning, but with bright sunshine and a blue sky, and the frost is dusting the grass with white. And we're here to meet a musician called Cole Stacey, one half of India Electric Co, and somebody who's been on tour with Midge Ure for the last 10 years playing synths and mandolin, but now he's embarked on a solo project, putting a spotlight on the lost places of Dartmoor. Let's find out more. Cole, good morning. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
What a great morning it is, isn't it?
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's got everything you want. Yeah, my wife used to present the weather on TV and she said, it's all right, we'll sort it for you. So I owe her one, I think.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's going to be beautiful today.
Yeah, beautiful.
And where have you brought us to? What is this church?
This is the wonderful St Paul's Church in Yelverton. It's not particularly old, it's about 100 years old, but it's situated in a strange place for Dartmoor because there's actually things going on. You know, normally a lot of churches are very, very secluded, but it's one of those places that when I first came to, I walked in, and as we'll see, the light coming in from the south side just offers this illuminating vision, and it's so warm in there. I spoke to Richard, the rector, and he said this place is built for sharing, telling stories and performance. And I used their piano to record the record, and it's a very warm place. It's a very welcoming place, especially on a day like this. It's very warm.
I hope you're going to play the piano for us in a moment.
I'll see what we can do. I'll tinkle the old ivories, yeah.
But I have to say that we're in Yelverton, and we're near Buckland Monacorum.
Yeah.
And those words, for me, are Seth Lakeman words.
Yeah,
we did an episode of Folk on Foot with him here. So do you know Seth well?
I do. Well, the thing is, in here, it's a very small community. So everybody, I live round the corner from Sean Lakeman and Kath round the corner, and Seth lives, as he said, in the adjacent village. So it's a very folk-orientated little part of the world. So I bump into him. I saw him the other day going to Co-op. So we do that thing where we pretend we don't notice what either of us is buying, and it's very much Lakeman territory.
Do you ever get together and play at all?
Yeah, I mean, so the Leaping Salmon, which is the pub in the village that I live in, Horrobridge, they have wonderful folk nights and open nights and the carols, and there was a carol night a few months ago, and Cara was there and Sam and everybody was there singing.
Fantastic. Cara Dillon. It's that must be some carol night.
I know. Yeah, I stand at the back and bit of bass baritone and nothing else.
Listen, let's go inside the church because I'm anxious to hear this piano.
Let's do it. And as you can see, that when you walk in, you're just struck by the light immediately coming in from that south side, aren't you? It's something very special.
Sun's shining beautifully through the windows, and there are two plain glass windows, leaded windows, and then a stained glass window in the middle. But there's, as you say, a real atmosphere of calm here. And they don't have pews, they have rows of chairs.
Yeah.
And then this lovely piano at the front here. Is it a special instrument?
It is. It's quite an old Steinway, and it's beautiful to play. It's got a couple of... they promised me they tuned it about 5 years ago, so that's about right for me. So that'll fit with my singing. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful piano.
And why did you want to record here of all places?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. It fits in with the whole album and the project, and I had this folk song, traditional song, Hard Times Come Again No More, which you'll know and many people have done. And it fitted in with this theme of regeneration and lost places. And this church was built about 100 years ago, and about 100 years previous to that, this song was written. Originally kind of an American Civil War song. And it's been through itself, the song, many parts of regeneration, and many, many different people, as the best folk songs have taken it on and put their own stamp on it. It's that Mahler quote about tradition not worshipping the ashes, but preserving the fire. Anyway, I had that song, Hard Times Come Again No More, and I wanted to strip it back to its core. And I think, for me, when I first listened to the song, the overriding element was of hope. And so I've stripped it right back to its core melody, and I just wanted one instrument. And I walked in here and played just one of the notes and heard the room, and thought, well, this is the place to record this. This has all those elements of hope, reflection, regeneration. And I actually recorded this live, which I haven't done for the whole record. I just set up a couple of microphones. The flower ladies were in at the same time. So, I mean, it was magical. They were literally changing the flowers, and that you can hear them on the record. And I just wanted to capture the essence of the space, which is the whole concept of the album. It's places as well, and our connection to places. You don't have to be religious, you don't have to have any affiliation with certain things, but you can connect to a place, I think, and that's what I walked in the first time, not that long ago, and was connected to it. So I hope that comes across on the record.
Well, and I hope we can recreate that atmosphere.
Sure.
I'll try and rearrange the flowers
if you
while
could,
you're playing, if that's all right. Well, do make yourself comfortable at the piano and give us a version of that song.
Okay.
There's a sign that is painted across the troubled way. There's a cry that's heard upon the shore. Though their voices are silent, pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again. Oh, the hard times come again. Oh, hard times come again no more. Let's pause in life's pleasure and count its many tears while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again. Oh, the hard times come again. Oh, hard times come again no more.
Cole, that was absolutely fantastic, and you've made it very much your own. You've put your own stamp on the song that we've heard in many different arrangements.
Yeah, well, that's kind of you to say. I think I kind of wanted the place to speak for itself and the song to just be stripped back into its original form. The melody and the words, I mean, they're timeless. This is the thing about folk music and my connection to tradition, is that you can take words that are 200 years old, and yet they sound so relevant to me. They sound so... I always think the test is I've got my niece and nephew who are teenagers in the Northeast. If it rings true to them at 16, then I think there's something really quite magical about that it's lasted that time and it means something. So, listen, it's just a joy to come and be in this place.
And this whole album is about place.
Yeah.
And it's recorded in many different places, isn't it? Around Dartmoor.
Yeah, absolutely. The album, Postcards from Lost Places, I kept finding these extraordinary places that they kept presenting themselves to me. It started out, I got a little space in a regenerated clay factory in Ivybridge, and I walked in and it was just an incredible space that had, again, been through regeneration. Lidford Church, which is down the road, 13th century, had so many stories. Lidford Jail, Brent Tor, Merivale, which is a prehistoric site up there.
And you recorded at all of these places?
Recorded, yeah, absolutely. Because like here, like we were saying, it would be pointless trying to tell these stories in a glamorous recording studio. Not that necessarily I do that anyway, but do you know what I mean? You'd lose the soul, you'd lose the essence of what I was trying to do, which is to capture the place. And I hope that when people listen to the records, they're not just hearing a song, they're hearing a song that has relevance to a place, or they're hearing the place on the record itself. Our connection to places, I think, is so strong, and that works in music. And it started really because playing music, a lot of the folk tradition means that you end up being transported to incredible places that have been part of history for so long. And so I think it was always deep-rooted in me to return here.
You're a kindred spirit, obviously, for this podcast. You're absolutely a natural. Absolutely. Will you take us to another place now and sing another song for us? Where should we go next?
Well, we're going to just cross the road and go to what is an abandoned World War II site, Harrowbeer, RAF Harrowbeer. As you'll discover, you would never really know that it was that. It's been rewilded and regenerated, and it, again, has an extraordinary history. So, yeah, we'll put our gloves and take our hot water bottles and go and view RAF Harrowbeer.
You might think he's joking, ladies and gentlemen, but he has actually brought a hot water bottle.
It's rock and roll.
Well, I imagine that your fingers are rather important in this. You brought your mandolin as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
So let's keep your fingers warm with the hot water bottle as we walk.
Brilliant.
Look at the ice underfoot, Cole. Look at this ice.
That's proper ice, isn't it?
Break that with our feet.
Did you bring your skates?
I didn't actually, but I should have done, shouldn't I?
Next time.
That's fantastic.
Brilliant.
The glass,
It's like glass.
It's incredible.
need to get that recorded and put it on a record, I think.
Put it on a podcast.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Look at that beautiful crystal shape. This is about a foot across, this piece of ice. Absolutely wonderful. Let's see what it sounds like when you smash it. Wow, that's great. So satisfying. So we're just walking across an open space now. Is this part of the old RAF station from World War II?
This is it. Yeah, this is actually it. And I think a lot of people, like myself when I first came here, didn't realise what it is. As you can see, there's kids learning to ride their bikes, there's dog walking, there's people just being out in the space without really knowing the connection to the past. So in 1941, they ended up using this as a base to help with Plymouth, because Plymouth was originally not thought that it would be in danger. It was going to be fine, but obviously that changed very quickly. And so they built an RAF site here, and the bunkers, which are just ahead, they're actually made quite eerily actually of the rubble that was fallen down in Plymouth. So they bought some of the rubble from the houses and
the buildings. The bombing?
Yeah, from the bombing, and they turned it into making the shelters and making the site here. And it is quite an extraordinary place because I think it offers that connection to the past without it being necessarily negative and necessarily downbeat because of what it's become. And the moor has has taken it back. The ponies, the sheep have taken it back. But it's one of those places that I was walking through here when I would go and create and write up in my studio in the clay factory. And I had this specific song in mind, Quiet is Louder. And this just felt like the place. I was bowled away by the fact that you look around, I mean, the moors are just around, but then there's the main road connecting everybody together. It has that essence of connection with everybody and everything, and the past, and the really recent past. So I just find it a really fascinating site to be a part of.
And presumably it was quite difficult for the pilots coming in here. Were there any accidents?
Well, there was. The church that we've just been to, just across the way, sadly a pilot took out the tower and lost their life on their way back because of that exact thing, Matthew, because of the fog. And, you know, I mean, not that you'd know it from today, but very quickly it can change here. And yes, so the tower of that church was taken out, and all the buildings around had to be for one story. They had to take the next story off because the planes would come in so low. President Truman ended up here because of the fog, because he couldn't land, so he ended up being here.
And it was just in operation during the Second World War, and then it closed again.
Yeah, you know, 1941 as well, so it wasn't even the whole thing. Really short amount of time. And so, I mean, as we look out, we can see the moors, we can see, I mean, Plymouth isn't very far, Tavistock's to our right. And yet, as I said, I think most people will be walking here just assuming it's a beautiful open space.
Yes, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So do you come from round here originally? Were you born and brought up here?
So I originally was from the other side of the moor. My folks were from Honiton in East Devon, and so I grew up at things like Sidmouth Folk Festival, and my dad ran a music shop just outside Honiton. And so I grew up there, surrounded by music and...
Folk music or all kinds of music?
Yeah, all kinds, I would say.
And when you say a music shop, was it a musical instrument shop or a record store?
Yeah, a musical instrument shop. Right. So my mum would always lament the fact that there were never any sofas in our house. It was just guitar boxes and amplifiers we had to sit on. So a music shop, and I was the youngest of four, surrounded by far more talented and clever siblings, and music was just there the whole time. It was just my whole life.
So did you all play as a family?
Yeah, we did. We definitely did, and it was, although that's quite a folk sounding setup, but it didn't feel like that at the time. It's just it was a very organic thing. We would always just sing and play, and I would learn guitar from my brother, and my dad was always in bands. They were always the gigs that I would first go to, and so it was, I suppose, inevitable that love would just shine through, and it was always, this is it, this is what I want to do.
And did particular instruments draw you more than others?
Well, my connection to folk music is the fact that I started playing drums for a ceilidh band, loved it, and was in awe of the fact that there was all these tunes that these amazing instrumentalists would play, and I would sit and tap along and loved that. So originally the drums, but as the drummer in my band would say, perhaps my timekeeping isn't my strongest element. So I ended up very quickly, my love and connection to music was about melody and song and songwriting. Maybe at 14, 15, that was the path that I wanted to go down and was most connected to. And that took me away from Devon. I ended up moving to Paris to try and learn gypsy jazz. Completely failed.
You wanted to follow in the Django Reinhardt footsteps.
Totally failed. Ended up busking, and loved it. But from Paris went to London, and then musically things took a slight different turn, and an amazing turn for me. I ended up working with Midge Ure, and still am.
Do, don't you?
10 years now. That was a really, really incredible moment, and
How did it happen?
Well, the truth and the unglamorous story is it involved a battered Ford Fiesta and me driving from Devon to Motherwell. And
Tell me more.
It's such a story. Midge was doing some solo acoustic shows at the time, which is where I first kind of met him, and he was having local support acts. And by local, obviously, Devon to Motherwell perhaps isn't the most local, but the opportunity arose, and I drove up, and his dressing room happened to be at the side of the stage, and he was looking to put together an album of his, a very folk Celtic sounding album called Breathe. And me and my bandmate Joe were playing mandolins and violins. And
so you were this was with India Electric Co?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, it was just the two of us. And he said, hey, how do you fancy touring this album and putting these songs together? And it just grew like that. So for 3 or 4 years, we toured as just the three of us doing these acoustic songs. And people always say to me, they said, you know, it's a world away, the synths of Ultravox and Visage. And I said, I always go back to the fact that songs are songs, and we would sit in his kitchen with an acoustic guitar and a mandolin and strip those songs back to their core, to their melody, to their harmony, and it felt like learning folk songs in many ways. You know, they have such a connection to people for a long time, and it was a real apprenticeship. I loved learning.
So did you have to learn the Ultravox hits?
All of them on mandolin and guitar, and literally hundreds of songs. And that was an amazing thing for a songwriter, an aspiring songwriter, to do, is to learn other people's songs. It's the same with tunes, you know. There's no better way to develop your own skills, I think, than by learning other people's tunes and see how they did it. And 10 years later, you know, we're doing the synth thing and I'm playing bass, and we've had some amazing shows. I'm very, very lucky.
Played some big arenas, haven't you?
Yeah, Midge is amazing. He's singing better than ever. He's 71, and just it continues to be a joy and a privilege playing those songs. I mean, whether it's to 20,000 people at a festival or the Royal Albert Hall, or whether it's playing in Yelverton Church, the connection to the crowd and the audience and that shared experience, it's the same, you know. And so,
what about in the middle of RAF Harrowbeer? Would you care to play a song for us here?
I'd love to. I would love to.
I think you mentioned the song that you're going to do earlier, didn't you?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that song.
Yeah, Quiet is Louder. It came out of walking through here, and I had this line of that there was so much noise around here at one point, but the stillness is here, and you can feel that sort of strange juxtaposition. And this song was the first song that I wrote on this instrument, which is an octave mandolin, which apparently nobody plays anymore, and they don't really make them. But I fell in love with it.
And what's the difference?
Well, the difference is, in this sense, not massive, other than that it's a bit bigger and everything's an octave lower than the traditional mandolin. But I don't tune it like a mandolin, so it's a much more open tuning. At the moment, for this song, it's sort of an F-sharp minor tuning, which basically just means I don't have to use all my fingers. So.
And have you had this instrument for a long time?
I've had this for about 5 days, Matthew, because unfortunately the perils of being on tour meant that the last one, I opened it up in a dressing room somewhere in Portsmouth, I think, and it had a little accident on the tour bus, and by little I mean it had been very, very, very battered. So it's now in Mandolin Hospital, and will be for some time, I'm told. So, but
was it hard to find a replacement?
There's one in the country, and this is the one. So I was very, very lucky to get this 4 or 5 days ago. So its first introduction to live music is going to be here at RAF Harrowbeer. So
underneath the tree here.
Underneath the tree, yeah. So I promised it the Royal Albert Hall, but
we'll have to do.
Well, hey, absolutely.
We'll make
this
a lot of noise at the end. We'll applaud loudly.
Yeah, thank you.
Looks like dusk, how did it get late? Looks don't last, how did it get late? So soon, so soon. One last chance, don't think it's too late. One last dance, so much more that we don't say this late. There's so much more to say. The darkest hour is just before the dawn. Oh, there's a change of power just before the dawn. Sometime when the choir is louder, sometimes the choir is louder. We're invisible, visceral, invisible. Sometimes when the choir is louder, lost in haze, found in the silence, lost our faith, found a way back home now. I'm home now. Oh. just before the dawn. Oh, there's a change of power just before the dawn. Sometimes when the choir is louder, sometimes the choir is louder. We're invisible, visceral, invisible. Sometimes when the choir is louder. Just before the dawn. Oh, there's a change of power just before the dawn. Sometimes when the choir is louder, sometimes the choir is louder. We're invisible, visceral, invisible. Sometimes the choir is louder.
Fantastic. Am I right in thinking that you used some wood from here as percussion?
Yes, you are. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much around as we look to our left over there, there's a lot of scattered parts from the trees, the hawthorn and birch. And I thought, well, let's have something tangible on this record. It's okay to talk about the lost places, but let's actually have something. So I've got together lots of these sticks and twigs and dusted them down a bit, but kept them to what they were and formed a little percussive instrument. So the very first thing on the record is that percussive sound and just that melding together of those trees and twigs. And that then lasts the whole track. And I think what I quite like about it is that people who don't know the backstory won't have a clue. They won't know that what they're listening to, that they are connected to this place.
Now I'm looking out across the moor here, and I wonder if we might go further into Dartmoor. Is that possible?
I think we should, yeah. Let's head east and go towards Dartmoor, which is the other side of Tavistock, which also has many, many wonderful folklore and myths and stories to tell about amazing people like Mary Howard. And there's an extraordinary church on top of a tor, which we'll see if we can get to.
Let's go. Well, Cole, you brought us to an amazing spot now. Sun's shining down, and we're looking up this tor, which is a hill,
Yes.
with a church perched right on the top.
Yes. England's highest working church.
Is that right?
It is, yeah.
They still have services there?
They do, once a week, and then weddings, and yeah. I have to say, Matthew, this is the best view of Tor Church I've ever seen. The sky is completely clear, isn't it? And it's quite extraordinary.
Well, let's climb up there.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And there is actually frost on the ground, so the path is in shade. So the path is white with frost, but the sky is bright blue and the sun is shining down, giving us some warmth, which is most welcome. And is this a place of inspiration to you?
Yeah, it is. The first time I came here, I mean, you can't help but be not for six, really, can you, by it? And it's got so much history. 1130, I think, was the original foundings of this church. And what I found so interesting, as well as the fact that it's actually, when we get to the top, it's actually volcanic. Technically, it's very unlike the rest of Dartmoor. I don't think it's going to go off anytime soon, but most of Dartmoor is just granite, really, and very difficult to settle on. But this is originally volcanic, so it's a totally unique place, and it sits on the hill. And as I would drive across the moors and come home from shows and things, I would see it in the distance. It's awe-inspiring, isn't it? You know,
and it's just as if the rock has suddenly exploded out of the ground,
isn't it? Yeah,
shot straight upwards, and then the church is perched right on the top.
Yeah, Incredible. And when we get to the top eventually, we'll see that we can look out over, well, I mean, the whole of this side of the moors, but specifically to this song. And what I'm going to play is a track about a lady called Mary Howard, and she was from around 1560, and she lived in this part of the world, and her story has been perpetuated in folk song for many, many years. Sabine Baring-Gould, for example, did a story about her.
There are extraordinary legends about her.
I mean, and that's the amazing thing. So from here, we can look out and see her journey, her mythical journey, which is riding all the way from Tavistock, from the gatehouse, through to Lidford Jail, and Lidford Castle, and then on to Oakhampton Castle. And she would ride in the carriage made out of the dead bones of her 4 husbands who she'd wickedly done away with, which of course is not true.
Drawn by a mythical beast as well.
Drawn by a mythical beast with red eyes, absolutely.
And she's seen doing this at night, is she?
She's seen doing this at night in her carriage.
Even now?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen her lately, but then I haven't been here at night, perhaps. But
that's the stories that it went on for year after year.
Absolutely, and it never really ended because she was damned to pick a blade of grass from Oakhampton Castle, which is where her journey every night would finish. That just continued night after night, and she would ride back
so
to Tavistock.
Sort of damned to this eternal punishment.
That,
so that if she collected all the grass, then she would be free.
Exactly.
But you could never collect all the grass.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a bit like that myth of the person constantly pushing the world uphill.
Exactly that.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is that myth.
The Sisyphus myth, yeah.
It's quite an extraordinary myth for somebody who actually, by all intents and purposes, was an amazingly warm and giving woman and had to put up with an awful lot. But,
so the myth arose unfairly because the truth was very different.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, she was a 14-year-old girl who was sort of plucked and taken and ended up with 4 different husbands, none of which were very pleasant at all, I have to say.
I suppose the idea that she'd done away with them came out of that sense that she had been a victim, but she'd fought back.
Yes, exactly that, yeah. She had killed her husbands and used the bones to make this carriage to ride every night.
Whereas in fact she was an upstanding citizen.
Absolutely, yeah, and ended up the right word is victim, absolutely, as you said. She really was, and there was a real human being here, very young, and she had a lot of children. And she had to put up with that constant portrayal of the crazy old wicked lady, you know, and that's certainly the myth that we've got. But actually, for all the historical accounts there are, she was a very warm-hearted, giving woman and ended up having a house and employing people and rose from nothing to really being an incredible human being. So
you're trying to reclaim her reputation in this song?
I think it's nice to tell a different side to her story, and I hope that it's a side that's closer to the truth. But it's also with a respect to the original folk myth, that without that we perhaps wouldn't know her story. And so maybe now's the time to go back and look at that myth and retell her story. And yeah, this is the place to do it, looking at her journey. And this is where I wrote it and recorded a little bit of it, and this feels the right place.
Out of the gatehouse and left to her own devices she's riding on. Believe it or not, believe it or not, the triumph of traitors, 4 times a bride, living a lie, living a lie. There's nothing beside her, there's room for the truth this time. Full circle, there goes the night, there goes the night now. So searching through the night now. Out of the gatehouse without a sound, the devil's in the details moving out. Believe it or not, believe it or not, curse of betrayal, caught in a row, living a lie, living a lie. The whole world beside her, there's room for the truth this time. Full there goes the night, there goes the night now. So searching through the night now. Full circle, there goes the night, there goes the night. So searching through the night now. Out of the gatehouse, this journey's done. After hundreds of miles, she's coming home.
How wonderful to hear that with the journey going on behind you, really, here, down below. I mean, extraordinary setting. Will you come and sit on this bench?
Yes,
because
I'd love to.
we're now at the top, just by the church, and the view is extraordinary. So I want you to come and tell me what we can see.
Let's do it. It's pretty unique, isn't it?
A 360-degree view of Dartmoor from on high. It's almost like being flown in a drone over the moor, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
And the bright sunshine is silhouetting the winter trees against the frost, which is so beautiful to look at in the curved moorland around us. But what can we see over here? There's a settlement over there.
Well, Brent Tor is just down. It's the closest one, the village. We've got Oakhampton round the corner to our left. We've got Tavistock just down here. And as you said, you can just see 360. And I think there's a sound as well, isn't there? Even though it's still, there is there's like this quiet, mellifluous sound that the moors bring. And here, specifically, it has that presence that you are connected but away from everything as well. Do you know what I mean? I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel very, very connected to where we are and the stories of what we are, and yet we're almost outside looking in.
And I can also hear some baying dogs in the background, so I don't know if that's Mary Howard and her beast heading in our direction.
It absolutely.
But it's interesting, Cole, to have you here on your own, because we think of you as part of India Electric Co. with Joe.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that relationship and how it began and how it works.
Yeah, it's been an amazing relationship. It was very organic. We grew up together as kids in Devon, the other side of the moor, the sunny side, and my dad owned a music shop and Joe's dad ran Cayley's, and we were brought together by them really, and we'd end up playing in folk bands and various pub bands over the years, and we got to our late teens and tucked ourselves away in bedrooms and started writing tunes, and it just went from there. I always felt that Joe does know my voice almost better than myself. He's an extraordinary multi-instrumentalist, and we've grown into a band name and a band form, and we've added Russell, who brings percussion and drums to it. We've toured the world together, and it has been, and it continues to be, an amazing journey making music. And we've moved in various directions, from folk into synths and jazz and many different things, but we continue to explore and write for the love of writing, I think.
And the sound has obviously developed over time, and you've added in different instrumentation and so on. And people talk about alt folk and that kind of thing. I don't know, it's impossible to categorise music in that way, really, isn't it? But how do you think about the music that you make now together?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting point, because I think it feels like people are they want to put something in a box and pigeonhole it. And I'm not sure there's necessarily any need to do that. We make music that's based on traditional instruments but perhaps are used in contemporary ways. I think that was always our brief, and our love came from those traditional instruments and traditional melodies. I mean, Joe and I, we keep it very simple. We always just wanted to write songs and not do the same thing necessarily as everybody else. You know, we've ended up now with India Electric Company, where we are playing on bigger stages and do have a bigger sound, and that's really exciting. That's almost allowed me to return here right now and create this, what's been a really cathartic process of coming up here and writing and coming home. Exactly, Matthew, exactly that. It is that, and it sounds a bit cliche, but it's so true. The songs kind of wrote themselves, and this whole album of Lost Places was a far more cathartic and personal one than I perhaps intended to do or realised at the time. And
Does it
I've
feel
loved it.
exposed to be on your own?
Yeah, it does. It does.
When you're used to being with other
absolutely,
musicians in
yeah,
that
you're
way.
surrounded. You hide behind, other people, and that camaraderie on stage is wonderful, and the sound, and so suddenly bearing all, if you like, and stripping yourself back to just yourself and your voice. But that was the whole point of this album and this project, is that I wanted it to be honest, and there's no place to hide. And I did want to say, okay, look, this is an octave mandolin and a voice. This isn't a huge production. There's no auto-tune. There's no 20 takes, as we've just,
But there is Devon,
There is Devon.
and there is something about Devon, obviously, that matters to you,
Yeah.
and Dartmoor that matters to you,
Yeah.
and resonates with you, and is very much part of your identity.
I think so, and maybe it's coming home to that, returning after being away was really the catalyst for realising that. It's the classic not realising what you've got until it's gone, and going away from it. I would be in the city and be on tours, and the last few years have been intense with touring, and as much as that's exciting and that brings you so much playing in different places and parts of the world, I think I needed to come home to really process all that, and creatively to process that. And to be brutally honest, this whole project has felt like, sat here now, I feel like I'm at peace creatively. And I think perhaps so long of my life, creatively, it's been like that classic battle, that creative people say, oh, it's a battle, it's a struggle. I've heard people say that it's like they're at war with it, they're struggling to create, and people thrive off that. I think perhaps I've reached the point where maybe I don't thrive off that, and what I thrive off is being at peace. And this whole project has felt like I'm not a battle, and I'm at peace with it. And I've loved it because of that. And the connection to the place is so strong. It's in my heart, and it's in my soul, and it's really nice being able to share it with you, because up to this point it has been almost felt perhaps a bit self-indulgent. It's just been me, or I'd go home and talk to my stepkids and my wife and my family. So it's really lovely being able to share these songs properly
In these places.
I
must say, there's no greater sense of peace than looking out at this view and seeing it spread out before us. But I wonder if we should perhaps go inside the church just to sense the atmosphere there and hear a final song.
Let's do it. I'd love to. Thank you.
Well, let's go in through this narrow
Yes.
gateway here. And then somebody's kindly put some beautiful white flowers just by the door. That'll be lovely.
I think they are for us, Matthew. I'm pretty sure.
They're definitely for us.
Yeah. Look at this door.
Turn the handle and push the door firmly.
Yeah. Well done. You did that very well. You did do that very well. Here we are.
Oh, this is amazing, isn't it? Because it's a really intimate space. It's a really small church with one stained glass window behind the altar and one window on the right-hand side, and a narrow window behind me, and just a small row of pews.
Yeah.
But it's a really atmospheric space, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? It when you consider where we are and what it is, it's beautiful size, and you can see that it is used and loved, can't you? It's so old, and yet it's loved and it's used, and it's got an extraordinary soul of its own, I think.
Did you write a song here?
Yeah, I wrote one of the tracks for the album Feast or Fire here, and I came up and I recorded the next song that I'm going to play. I recorded the octave mandolin in here, which was interesting because it has that slight churchy echo, but it's quite a short reverb compared to, it's a very low ceiling, which is one of the reasons that it would work. So I like to think that people are hearing something tangible, they are hearing the place.
Would you sing the song here for us now?
I'd love to, yes.
Do you want to just give us the background to it?
Yeah, this is a song, All We Are. This is the kind of joining of the songwriting and the tradition together. It's a song that means a great deal to me. The verse words are based on a 17th century anonymous poem that, again, is pretty much lost. I can't seem to find anything about where it came from. But the words are just absolutely beautiful. Again, it goes back to the same thing as Hard Times. It still resonates 500 years later. Over rocks that are steepest, under mountains and waves, we'll find our way. It had that immediacy about it when I read it. And I've combined that with just a very simple, I didn't want to try and write some elaborate chorus. I wanted something for the record that kind of summed up me sat here and like we just felt looking outside the church. That sense of peace and connection. Very, very simple, gentle message. All we are is all we love.
Under floods to the deepest, over hundreds of days, oh, we'll find our way. To rocks to the steepest, over mountains and waves, oh, we'll find our way. When there's nothing to keep us, no hiding place, oh, we'll find our way. 'Cause all we are is all we love, and all we are is all we love, and it's only from the heart you can touch the sky. It's all we are. When the gods are upon us and the cowards obey, oh, we'll find our way. When there's thousands around us and so little space, oh, we'll find our way. And when it's easy to lose sight, harder to stay, oh, we'll find our way. 'Cause all we are is all we love, and all we are is all we love, and it's only from the heart you can touch the sky. It's all we are. It's all we are now. Give it up to get it all back. Not the first, won't be the last. To turn and circle and turn your back, but to give it all up is to get it all back. All we are is all we love. All we are is all we love. 'Cause all we are is all we love, and all we are is all we love, and it's only from the heart you can touch the sky. It's all we are. It's all we are now.
That was remarkable just to hear that performance here in this amazing church. Cole, thank you so much for taking us to these lost places on Dartmoor and treating us to these beautiful songs and your wonderful stories. Thank you very much. It's been a joy to have you on Folk on Floor.
Oh, thank you. It's been a privilege, a pleasure. And as I said earlier on, just sharing this with you is a wonderful process for me, really cathartic and joyous to bring you here. And yeah, I'm glad we sorted the weather out for you.
It's been beautiful. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Folk on Foot as much as we enjoyed making it. There are over 60 episodes of Folk on Foot for you to explore, featuring amazing artists like Eliza Carthy, Johnny Flynn, The Unthanks, Corrine Polwood, Chris Drever, Sandra Kerr, Catherine Tickell, and many, many more. So please do explore our back catalogue. And if you like what we do, we really need your support to keep going. You can become a member and get great rewards, or you can simply buy us a coffee. To do either, and to sign up for our ad-free version, just go to folkonfoot.com/support us. Every penny we get goes back into making more episodes, so please do support us if you can.